So, what was it?
We did chapters 4 to 9.
Well, let's recap what we did last week first. So, what did we learn last week about melanin?
Well, last week we learned about
We did the intro.
Yes, we did the intro. We talked about melanin mainly in it. Then we talked about the biology.
What about it? All right. Well, I'll rehash it with you too. So, last week we talked about the different parts of melanin and how skin melanin is not in direct relationship to our internal melanin. We have different kinds of melanin, and they're all different molecular structures. They all perform their own enzymatic chemical reactions within our body. Our melanin performs mainly the main function of our melanin in our body is to help our body with our nerve impulses, our electromagnetic sites in our body. It helps as a conductor, which helps us move faster, our reflexes faster, and so on and so forth. Last week we also talked about how the science of melanin is considered pseudoscience in mainstream studies. This is why melanin is not a big factor when talking about healthcare, education, science, anatomy, etc. But it actually should be, because melanin kind of puts us at a spectrum amongst each other. But like I said before, there is no direct correlation between external and internal. Everything is within itself. There is also studies stating that each element of melanin that you have can potentially have its own DNA structure. So all that is dependent upon your DNA and so on and so forth. So going into this week, and then we also went over the embryo development with melanin, and how as an embryo in the womb, you have 3 cell layers, and each cell layer is divided into even more layers eventually, as the zygote goes on to develop into a fetus. And as these layers divide, they eventually turn into the different internal and external organs that we have, and melanin is kind of concentrated within those areas. And so since we went over the embryonic stage of development with melanin, now we're going into the stage as a human being outside of the body, outside of the womb, and the different areas where melanin is concentrated into, and those different areas and how melanin affects those areas. So the first section that we got into is the nervous system. What do you have on the nervous system in chapter 4?
Okay, so for chapter 4, it's basically a rundown on how melanin enhances the functioning nervous system. And then after the reading, you will know that the nervous system controls the body functions like normal. Without the melanin, the nervous would be shattered, and all automacy would shut down.
Good. So he got the overall summary of chapter 4. As far as the nervous system goes, the nervous system is divided into two divisions. You have your central nervous system, which is your bones, your skull, your spine, and then you have your peripheral nervous system, and these are the nerves that go in and out of your central nervous system. There's 12 pairs of cranial nerves, and they have their own branches. And there are also 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and they also have their own branches. You have your neurons, which are your cells, your dendrites, which are the branches on the ends of those cells. And those are the ends that send and receive messages. You have your axons, and your axons are the ones that actually do the sending, the action of it. And melanin is a conductor in between those neurons. So the more concentrated melanin you have, the faster the electric pulses and the messages in between your neurons operate, which is good for reflexes and so on and so forth. There are 12 nuclear masses, and they contain black cells in the brainstem nuclei, and this is called the immense nerve tract. It's located in the locus coeruleus, and that's the black dot doorway. We went over that last week about the black dot doorway being in the center part of your brain, and that part being the black doorway to human unconsciousness and the relation to the universe and one another. What you want? It also supplies norepinephrine, which is the neurotransmitter that is secreted for alertness. The cerebral cortex, the hippocampus, the cingulate, and the norepinephrine, it helps with emotions and memory. And then you have the substantia nigra, which is the midbrain, and that secretes dopamine. And we went over last week about Parkinson's, which is toxins deteriorating your dopamine, and melanin's ability to accumulate free radicals, which is free electrons in the air, and metallic substances can destroy the functioning of pigmented brain cells. Neuromelanin is dependent upon ethnicity, and it can also be genetically programmed. Melanin may also contain its own DNA, which is what I explained earlier, and which is why it comes in different forms. And then on page 45, they also go on to talk about albinos. With this section of the book, at the end of every section, they do go on to talk about albinos, which is a special case because they don't have external melanin, but they do have internal melanin. So it talks about that bridge between those two people. Actually, albinos, they have neural melanin. So page 45, I'm going to read it off. It says, all types of melanin are probably distinguished at a level of DNA to support the viewpoint that neuromelanin is species specific. In humans, levels of neuromelanin may vary depending upon an individual's ethnicity. Accordingly, variation in neuromelanin could be genetically programmed. So you can GMO melanin into people. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the film Gattaca, but Gattaca was like the first film I ever watched that talked about genetically programming children. When people try to have babies, if you're rich, you can, play with the algorithms of your child to have a perfect child. Moving on, if melanin does indeed contain its own DNA, then it will help to explain the uniqueness of different types of melanin that are found within the deep recesses of the nervous system and the external body. To further distinguish neuromelanin from skin melanin, there's a relationship to albinism in humans. Albinos cannot produce color and primarily lack external melanin. However, a special characteristic of internal neuromelanin is suggested by the normal pigmentation of the LC and the substantia nigra, which we said before is the midbrain, and that means black dot, and that releases dopamine, which regulates your emotions and memory and alertness. Where was I? A special characteristic of internal neuromelanin is suggested by the normal pigmentation of the LC and the substantia nigra of albinos who lack melanin pigments elsewhere. Likewise, European or Caucasian people have adequate pigmentation in the brain, but low amounts of pigmentation in the skin. So Europeans they might not have as much, because there is a correlation of skin melanin to neuromelanin, but Europeans do indeed have neuromelanin. It's just not as much. So their reflexes are not as fast and so on and so forth. But we'll get in more detail with that when we go on and talk about the melanin in your retina, as well as your auditory system and your skin. If the amount of neuromelanin present in the pigmented neurons is species and age dependent, then it should be no surprise that the amount will vary among ethnic groups. So the endocrine system. What do you have on the endocrine system?
Endocrine system. In chapter 5, it shows how melanin assists in the endocrine system. The endocrine system helps the communication process inside the body. But these are the following substances, which they are chemical messengers. Chemical messengers are they're like little radio towers in your body that transmit the signals in the body to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the following chemical messengers are in the endocrine system. Endocrine system. Hormones, neurohormones, neuropeptides, if I said that right, neurotransmitters, pheromones, and growth factors.
These are the chemical messengers in the body that send the messages to your brain. Tyrosine, as described on page 48, is the biosynthetic pathway that leads to the formation of skin melanin and brain melanin depends on a precursor molecule called tyrosine. Tyrosine has a key factor in the formation of a specific category of neurotransmitters called catecholamines. In the biosynthesis of these catecholamines, tyrosine is converted to dopa, and then to dopamine, and then to norepinephrine, and then to epinephrine. And this is shown in the Mason-Rayford pathway. And in the beginning of the book, I think right after the introduction, there's a bunch of diagrams. And this is I don't want to lose my page, but this is the Mason right there pathway. You could take a screenshot of that or whatever you need to do. And that just talks about the chemical reactions that needs to occur in order for melanin to be produced. This is in the skin. I tried to explain this last week, but I couldn't really get the words right for it. But yeah, so that's the chemical reaction. It's not like you're just producing melanin. You're producing a couple of other things, and melanin is actually the byproduct. And then melanin also acts like a catalyst, which helps conduct the electromagnetic nerve impulses to keep you going at an adequate speed. And then when you look at it physically, you see someone on rhythm, or somebody can play basketball very well, someone can run very well, or someone who has good reflexes. That's what you see physically as a result of melanin, someone being enriched in melanin. Proteins and amino acids, peptides, and enzymes. They go on to describe the different definitions of these. If you guys are not familiar with the cellular layers, peptides are links of amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks for proteins. And there are 20 essential amino acids depending upon how the amino acids are linked. And we call the links peptides or proteins, which is a long string, and the strings depend on whatever it is that you're trying to do. And an enzyme would be the substance that would break the chains accordingly to whatever you need those chains for. The example that they give is rubber bands. So if you have a long chain of rubber bands, you have a protein. But if you have a small link or a section, that's a peptide. And then each rubber band or link is an amino acid. And then the scissors that come to cut the rubber bands, that's the enzyme. Is that a good description for you? Did that work? Mm-hmm. Hey, y'all. And then we get into the POMC, which is one large protein molecule that's found in the brain. And there are several peptide messengers that are found that provide specific sequences in the POMC, and it's synthesized by cells in the accurate nucleus of the hypothalamus, which is right on top of your pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland is right here. Your hypothalamus is right above it. And that's in the anterior lobe of the pituitary, like I just said. It gets its name from the specific chemical substances that are found in the protein molecule. Yeah, so specifically the POMC chain incorporates many important substances. I'm going to go over the 8 substances that this protein chain incorporates, and you have the ACTH, which is a hormone released by the anterior lobe that stimulates the cortex of the adrenal gland to release hormones, and those hormones are your adrenaline hormones to stay alert. You have your alpha MSH, which is a hormone that's released primarily from the intermediate lobes of the vertebrae to darken your skin. This is incorporated with the ACTH chain. You have your CLIP, which is a weak form of the ACTH. You have your beta lipotropin, which is a weak hormone and it's released by the anterior lobe. And this causes fat cells to break down their lipids. The gamma lipotropin is a weak form of beta lipotropin. It's incorporated in the beta lipotropin chain. You have your beta MSH. This function for this is not defined yet. You have your beta END, and this functions as a neurotransmitter and an endogenous opiate. And then you have your gamma MSH, and this is the third version of MSH, and it lies in the part of the POMC that's not defined as a messenger. And the ends of the gamma MSH may lie at a bond between the amino acid arginine and lysine. I didn't really get into what those 2 proteins were. I should have.
Does it explain the beta MSH?
It doesn't really explain. Really what this is to introduce the large protein molecule, where it's located at, and it gives the incorporations as a courtesy, but that's not really what we're focusing on. What we want to focus on is the intermediate lobe in the MSH. And when we go to page 52, but right before we do that, I want to introduce the fact that we're going into the pituitary gland section of this. And the pituitary gland is located on the basis of the skull between the eyes. Like I said, your pituitary gland is right here. Your hypothalamus is up here. It has 2 lobes. You have your adenohypophysis and your neurohypophysis. Your adenohypophysis is in your anterior pituitary, and these are the hormones that regulate your organs. The neurohypophysis is in your posterior pituitary gland, and this stores and functions the vasopressin and oxytocin, and this is produced in the hypothalamus, and then it's released with electrical stimulation. Okay, so going back to the intermediate lobe and the MSH, like you asked before, on page 52, the hypothalamus is and it has 50 separate. Okay, so the size is correlated with animals' ability to change color. So the intermediate lobe is where some of the chemical reactions are taking place to produce melanin, and the size of it is bigger in other animals. Like a chameleon, it will probably be huge because the chameleon is always changing its color. But it's not really that large in humans. It's big in the embryo because when the embryo is inside the body, it's developing its color and all the different colors that it needs. So that organ is very big in the embryo, but once the baby is born, it shrinks significantly because it's no longer needed. We don't really change colors like that. It would be cool if we could and if we did, but we don't keep that. It shrinks when we're born.
Aww.
Right? That would be so dope. Is there a way we could bring that back?
Or is there like special people that still have it be like, oh, I can change color?
It might be special. I mean, there's billions of people in the world, and there's so many birth defects and so many random happenings when people are born. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who were born and that stayed large. But I'm pretty sure there's a reason why we have evolved to where when we're born, that part of our brain shrinks. And there's probably some negative effects to that also. It might not be able to be controllable because maybe there's other nerve endings that you need to control it. So this person's probably always fucking disappearing and shit. I don't know. I'm making that shit up. I don't know. But it's divided into 3 regions and it controls your brain functions. And MSH is short for melanocyte stimulating hormone. And then So yeah, that's what that is. Then we get into the visual system. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me read the summary first. In some, there's evidence that the inhibition of the MSH secreted by the hypothalamus is controlled by the catecholamine and mostly like dopamine, which is most likely like dopamine. The catecholamines, such as norepinephrine and epinephrine, are inhibitory to MSH secretion from isolated intermediate lobe. And in the absence of inhibition, MSH exhibits spontaneous electrical activity in vitro. So that's basically what I just said. Like when you're in the womb, you have more of this, and there's a lot of activity going on because you're developing your color. But once you're born, it shrinks significantly. And it was reported that melanin can exhibit bioelectronic properties, and MSH, the hormone that stimulates melanin production, can also have bioelectronic properties. I want to go back for a second because I didn't read the conclusion of the nervous system, and I want to read it because I want you to understand, and the fact that you can't recall what we read like a week ago, I want you to recall these things, okay? All right. So going back to the nervous system, in conclusion, it must be understood that the nervous system controls and integrates all bodily functions. It is the brain that controls the body and maintains stability by its countless adjustments, commands, and secretions. When you review the scientific research, it indicates that melanin is necessary for the nervous system to function properly, and its functioning can be referred to as automatic. Automatic in the sense that melanin operates as an organizing principle in the developing embryo and the nervous system, strengthening the independent viability of the developing organism. Melanin is found in the developing embryo to assist in organizing the rapidly dividing cells. After birth and as the infant develops, melanin is enhancing psychomotor development. During childhood, it is the delicate balance of melanin in the nervous system that causes one to think, move, and adjust to the changing environment. Without the proper functioning of neuromelanin, the human nervous system would be deficient and behavior would be static, which means lacking in automatic responsiveness. So, okay, let's think critically. Let's go back to Metu Neter, what we read about Metu Neter. And your will and unwell. Do we remember what will and unwell is? What is it?
The will and unwell. It could base.
You want my help? Okay. So you have your willed movements, which are things that you think to do before you do them. And then you have your unwilled movements, which are things that you don't think about at all, like your heart beating, your eyes blinking, breathing, and all the little things that are going on in your cells right now. You have like over a quadrillion things going on in your body right now as you sit there.
Automatic and automatic.
So we are automatic beings overall, because a lot of the things that we do are automatic. And the melanin is a conductor to assist in those automatic happenings. So the melanin in your brain is essential, because without that conductor,
Nothing
would happen. You can't have electric without wires. You can't. Everything that's electric has wires in it, and if you don't have wires to conduct that electricity within it, you don't have anything happening. So the melanin. So we could correlate.
So if you had no wires, no nervous system or anything, no melanin, would that mean you would have to do everything yourself?
No, you would be a dead body. There's nothing happening, because you need the neuromelanin to even control the actions that you want to control, that you think to control. And if we go back to Metu Neter and we talk about the spheres of life and being in tune with the spheres of life, we can talk about melanin being the black dot doorway to universal thinking and universal consciousness. Maybe that part of your brain, which just so happens to be the central part of your brain, is that part that you're supposed to. Oh, what's the link between chlorophyll and melanin? I'm sorry, I didn't even see that. we're actually going to get into that because
it's actually in the book.
Yeah, it is in the book, and it's actually remotely the same thing. It's pretty much the same thing.
I think I put it in here.
Yeah, I definitely wrote it in my notes. It's basically the same thing. But yeah, getting back to that, when you get into the divine consciousness and things, that is what you, on a physical realm, maybe physically, that's what you need to attune to. You need to attune to that part of your brain, which is considered the universal consciousness. And that's why meditating is important, and breathing is important, and learning how to feed that part of your body and your brain is important. All those things is important. So moving forward, I would like to learn more about feeding those parts of your body so that we can ultimately move forward to that sphere 0 in the Metu Neter book. What do you think about that? Nothing.
Maybe I have to review more on the willpower and everything.
Yeah.
And then maybe even look more into the protein, because I want to see why we can't figure out the meaning of beta MSH.
Well, like I said before, the study of melanin in the healthcare as well as science and all those things is considered pseudoscience. And when I say pseudoscience, what I'm saying is the science community, not important. Well, not necessarily not important, but more so they're trying to say that it's not real. It's not something we're studying. It's not actual. There's no facts in that. But that's because a lot of these structures are racist, and they're ran by Western scientists who are ultimately European.
Okay.
And it's just this mindset because of white supremacy and how it's created. It's this mindset that once, melanated people or people with higher concentration of melanin, once they find out what end of the spectrum they are on when it comes to genetics, and you're familiar with Darwinism and natural selection and stuff like that. Once melanated people become more in tune with where they are on that spectrum of survival, that they will become the next people that will emulate that white superior complex. You know what I mean? And as it has been shown before and many times again, Black people aren't built like that. As far as like spiritually wise, socially wise, maybe with one another, but we're more empathetic with outsider people. But where was I? So yeah, I would like to start incorporating all the books that we read at one time. We read Metu Neter, and Metu Neter was more about spirituality and getting in touch with your spirituality and the divine being and the spirits of life. But now we're talking about our lower selves, right? Now we're talking about our animal, our physical being, which is what? Sphere what?
10?
Yep, sphere 10. Our physical being is, no, you're right, sphere 10. Sphere 10 is our physical selves. So this right here is focusing on our physical self. And I know a lot of people, when they become, spiritually conscious and they find themselves reaching a higher level on the sphere of life, they feel like they can do away with sphere 10, 9, or 8, but you can't. You're not supposed to. To become to your full self, you have to be in tune with your higher self and your lower self, not just your higher self. Or you can't just be stuck on your lower self and be comfortable that way either. You have to have equilibrium of both. You have to have an acceptance of both, because when you look at a yin and yang, you see both sides to make a whole, to make a circle. You don't just see one side, right? Right. So we're studying our lower selves right now, which is just as important as our higher selves. And keeping it 100, when you think about melanin and you think about where melanin is in the brain, and you think about what melanin controls in your brain, this is a direct correlation between your lower self, your physical self, and your higher self at the same time. As it has been described in the book, that the black seed doorway, that central part of your brain where melanin is highly concentrated at, that is considered the doorway between your physical self and the spiritual door of united consciousness.
And that would keep on going in and out of the brain context.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And inward in DNA. So
yeah. So interesting, right?
Yeah.
See how that works?
All right. Let's answer the question about the chlorophyll and melanin.
The chlorophyll and melanin, where did I see that at? We are going to get to it because I did see it. Because right now we're about to go into the retinas, which goes into talking about absorption of light and no, we're going to get into that when we talk about skin, and that's at the end. That's right.
Oh,
so just give us a moment. Right now we're going to talk about the visual retina. Okay, so the colors that we detect in our environment are dependent upon a special melanated layer in the cells in our retina. There's a diagram in the front of the book again where it talks about the electromagnetic spectrum. The different. This shit is hard. This is what it felt like to have like the stuff on the what is that called? The projector screen at school. But these are the different lights and the rays of light, and what your eye does. You see that small arrow. What the light does, it goes through that small arrow, and that's your eye, and that's how you're absorbing it. So all that light out there, and you're only absorbing a little bit. And what your melanin in your eye does, your melanin focuses that. Just like how, if you look at a camera, if you notice that the inside of the camera, everything is black. They purposely make everything black, because if it wasn't purposely, they would cosmetically make it different colors for visual purposes and pleasures, because they have red cameras, yellow cameras. But if you look in the inside camera, everything is black, because the black brings the focus of the light. And those who lack melanin in their eyes, instead of seeing that focus of light to sharpen their image, their light is like everywhere. It's all light, and it kind of makes it hard to focus on the image.
But if in the camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see the middle point of the camera has to be black. Then how does effects work? You know, like when you get a photo and you try to edit it to like, oh, this one is way more shiny.
That's playing around with the light on the screen that you're looking at. That's a whole different computer.
Yeah, I thought that would change the whole entire center, or how it looks at it.
You're talking about how you view the picture when you change the brightness?
Yeah.
One day when you're on your tablet, play around with the display settings. They have a brightness setting, they have a contrast setting, a saturation setting. And when you play with those, you'll notice that when you expand the brightness, the sharpness of the photo becomes distorted, and it becomes wider, and it takes more space. And you can no longer make a definitive line of where the different images begin and end, because the brightness is reflecting off the image. So what notes do you have for the visual system? And this is chapter 6.
The visual system, chapter 6 tells us how the possession of melanin helps the visual system, like how colors in our environment are dependent on a special melanated layer of the cells in the retina for us to see it. For us to see it, has to be in the retina.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the retina takes the light waves, which she just said, and just showed you the picture of how if it detects vision, it comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So in the beginning of the book, with the photos, they have the light rays, but then they also have a diagram of the eye. This is your eye. This is the lipid bilayers of your eyes. The bottom layer. Where is it? The rods and the cones. The rod. Okay. So the colors. So when it comes to the retina, the iris controls the amount of light with an image, and the retina is a thin tissue layer in the back of one's eyeball. The retina has photoreceptors, which are your rods and your cones. The rods help dim with dim light. So when it's dim outside, the rods is what's helping you see. And then when it's bright outside, that's when the rods will, bleach out. And then the cones come and they're bright. You have 125 million rods in your eyes. And they're mostly in the periphery area, which is on peripherals. And then you have 7 million cones in your eyes, and they're in the center of your retina. And like I said, that's for bright light. When it's sunny outside, like right now we're using the cones in our eyes, but at nighttime we'll be using the rods in our eyes. And they're divided into 3. They help see 3 color spectrums, which is red, green, and blue. And the fovea is the highest, sharpest center of the retina, and in the center it has 4,000 cones. Photopigments are molecules activated in the rods and cones accordingly, depending on what you need. On page 60, it goes on to talk about the eyeball. The pigment layer of the retina contains melanin. Melanin in the pigment layer prevents light reflection through the globe of the eyeball. The pigment performs the same functions in the eye as black paint inside the bellows of a camera, like I said before. Acute or sharp vision is dependent upon the melanin in the eye. Without it, light rays would be reflected in all directions in the eyeball, and it would cause diffuse lighting of the retina rather than a contrast between dark and light spots required for formation of precise images. Like I told you guys before, if you ever want to play with the brightness of your screen or something, you'll notice how when light is on something, it makes the image expand. Another important function of the pigment layer is its ability to influence the processing of essential chemicals required for vision. The pigment layer stores large quantities of vitamin A. Vitamin A or beta carotene is obtained from our diet and food substances like carrots. So I don't know if you guys grew up with that. Eating carrots is good for your eyes. And then when you become an adult, someone told you that was a myth. It's not a myth. Carrots do contain the vitamins that assist with vision. Vitamin A is passed back and forth through the membranes of our outer segments of rods and cones. Like I said, that helps see through the dark and light. Vitamin A is an important precursor for photosensitive pigments, and this interchange of vitamin A is important for the adjustment of the light sensitivity of the receptors. Moreover, melanin helps the physiological system store and utilize vitamins, which are some examples are vitamins A, C, B6, and B3, and these are necessary for other aspects of the nervous system functioning. The major difference between neuromelanin and retinal melanin is their origin. Melanocytes are derived from three sources, like we said last week, the three cell layers in your embryonic stage: the neural crest, the cranial neural tube, and the other one, the outer wall of the optic cup. And it is the outer wall of the optic cup that forms melanin in the retinal pigment epithelium, whereas neuromelanin is derived from the cranial neural tube. Once again, for emphasis, melanin is found in bodily regions where energy exchange or transduction is occurring. In visual processing, light is converted into nerve impulses. Melanin's electrical properties assist in the transduction of light stimuli into neural messages. The strategic placement of melanin in certain locations of the body optimizes energy conversion. The functions of retinal pigment epithelium are to absorb light, to prevent reflection, and to protect the photoreceptors from harmful effects. Because when you have too much light, think about how much light you look at in a day, that can do a wear and tear on your eyes. But because melanin absorbs a lot of the eyes, absorbs a lot of the light, and like we talked about before last week, as far as like melanin and their protection,
melanin will protect you from a lot of stuff, even ultraviolet rays.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it will absorb it. Mm-hmm. And like you said with the example of a sponge, if you soak up all that disgusting, dirty, soapy water, it will soon eventually drip out of it. Mm-hmm. And that it will start to fail.
Mm-hmm. And then it goes in to talk about albinos on page 62. The visual deficiencies, the importance of optical melanin, can be illustrated by its absence in albinos who hereditarily lack melanin pigment. Imagine an albino entering a bright area. The light would impinge on the retina and reflect off the white surface of the unpigmented area. There's reports on neural abnormalities in albinos, specifically abnormalities of the visual pathways. In mammals, they have shown that reduced melanin in the retinal pigment epithelium causes an abnormally small and uncrossed pathway, so you don't really absorb as much light as you could, and this distorts your vision. They also, when you're looking at a screen, also turn the brightness down as low as you can, and you can visualize what it would look like to be able to absorb less light. In albinos, the line of decussation is shifted into the temporal retina, and axons from the most nasal part of the temporal retina project to the opposite rather than the same side of the brain. The fovea is incompletely developed and projects mainly the contralateral optic tract. Like we said before, the fovea is the main part where the cones are, and that's where you're absorbing the bright light. So if you don't have melanin in your eyes, it's really hard for you to see during the daytime. And you might be able to have like bomb ass night vision though. We don't. Or it might just be even worse because you can't even absorb the light within the darkness to make out images. But one of its many functions, referring to melanin, is to facilitate the conversion of electromagnetic energy, which is light waves, into neural impulses. In addition, melanin can help to accumulate the necessary chemicals required to produce photopigments, without which would be almost impossible. Increased activity in the retina correlates into quicker reaction time and greater visual sharpness. Therefore, melanin in the pigment layer of the retina is necessary for proper vision. So now we're getting into the auditory and the vestibular system. The auditory system is your hearing. Your vestibular system is your equilibrium. What do you have for chapter 7?
Chapter 7. It forms the sensory system that allows us to hear, which is the auditory, and the maintain equilibrium, which is the vestibular, are both assisted by melanin. Hearing is a sense that... Yes.
You okay?
Yeah.
You lost your spot?
Yes, I did. Okay. Hearing is the sense that detects sounds in the external world, and while the position sense refers to the orientation of the head in space and movement of the body through space.
Noise. So chapter 7 goes on to describe the makings of the ear, and there is another diagram. I don't really care for this diagram. I'm pretty sure you can find another one on Google that's better, but this ear diagram is kind of like trash to me. Because I couldn't really like make out, like, it's a lot of different things, because you have your ear divided into 3 parts. You have your external ear, which is this part, that's your cartilage, your skin, and your eardrum. No, just like this whole part, this ear, this your outer ear. And then when you go inward, which is like, what was it, an inch and a half? I think we were using inches
and a half,
or millimeters. No, not millimeters. Yeah, it might have been a millimeter and a half or something like that. Let me find out on page 65 before I start.
Inch and a half.
I don't know.
An inch and a half in my ear. That's kind of hard to predict how big my head is.
Oh, you'd be surprised how much shit is jam-packed into your body and you feel like a little person. I don't know. I don't see the numbers. It does 1.5 something.
Even though it doesn't describe the measurement, it describes the overview of each part. The external ear, the middle ear, and so on and so forth.
The external ear serves to collect sound waves and direct them into external auditory meatus. This function is of little value in humans, but lower animals who use their outer ears to feel around and stuff like that, this is very essential to them. But the middle ear is what's important to us. The middle ear is
some people can control it.
What, the outer ear? Well, yeah, you can move it, but no, I'm saying as far as facilitating sound waves, we don't really use our outer ear. Everything that we use for hearing and nerve impulses,
it's like all the hair
is all inside. Yeah. So then you have your middle ear, and the middle ear transmits sound waves from the external ear to the inner ear, and it contains 3 auditory bones: the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. The names of these bones describe their shapes as a hammer, an anvil, and a stirrup. The bones vibrate together and they could take control over the sound waves. So you have sound waves going in your ear, and then the middle ear is going to vibrate it even harder. And the inner ear is fluid. Oh, no, we're not even talking about that ear. Oh, since the inner ear is fluid filled, which we'll get into in a second, the force of the sound wave must be amplified in the middle ear in order to overcome the fluid inertia of the inner ear. So when you got the sound waves, then the middle ear makes it a little bit stronger, and there's melanin in the middle ear. And what the melanin does in your middle ear is it amplifies that vibration that your middle ear is doing to amplify that before it goes into the inner ear. The middle ear is filled with air, and there are several openings into the middle ear activity. One leads to the auditory canal. Another opening, it leads to the upper passageways of the throat. I don't know if you guys had ever had like a sore throat, or like, I haven't had a real cold in so long, but when when you first start, because I eat right and I exercise like a real thug anyway. So like this upper part of your throat, when you first get like and you do that and you kind of feel it in the back of your ear all at the same time. That's all of that.
Pop-up would always do that.
Yeah, that's that connection. That's all of that right there.
I never knew how to do it. I only did it one time, and then I was like, oh, I forgot how to do it then.
And then the other two openings, which consists of an oval window and a round window, it leads to the inner ear. And yeah. So then you have your inner ear. And the inner ear is a part of the apparatus in which the melanin has the greatest effect. The inner ear is called the labyrinth because of its complicated shape. It consists of two main parts. You have your bony labyrinth, and inside of this is the membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth consists of three parts, which is your vestibule, your cochlea, and your semicircular canals. The membranous labyrinth, which is inside of this, consists of the utricle, the saccule, inside the vestibule, which is what we talked about as far as equilibrium goes. And then you have your cochlear duct inside the cochlea, and the membranous semicircular canals inside the bony ones. The membranous labyrinth can be divided into the auditory portion, which is hearing, and also the vestibular portion, which is your equilibrium. The fluid which fills these membrane structures is called the endolymph. That's the name of the fluid that's inside your ear. The general structure of the inner ear might roughly be compared to an automobile tire and its tube. The tough outer casing of the tire is comparable to the bony labyrinth, and the rubber inner tube is the membranous labyrinth, and then you fill it with water. The cochlea is a spiral tube around a cone-shaped bone. The corti, which is the bottom, is where the receptor organ is, and that's where the hair cells are. So you have a cone shape, and then you have the cochlea surrounded it, and at the bottom, that's where the hair cells are. And the vibration of the spiral cord organ of the corti results in the hairs being bent against and the above tectorial membrane. As a result, nerve impulses initiated by the stimulated hairs pass over dendrites, whose cells bodies are located in the spiral ganglia of the modiolus, which is the bone that the cochlea is surrounded around. Axons extending from this ganglion unite to form the cochlear branch of CN8, which is the the 8 nerves of the central nervous system from these systems to your brain. So you have like the spiral around the bone, and at the bottom of the bone is the axon, which we said is the part where the nerve impulses are being sent and received to go to your neurons. So does that make sense? Do you see it in your brain like a cone? Imagine your ear on the outside, and then inside turns into a cone on the other side, and that cone leads to your brain. Can you see it?
That's very complicated.
It's very complicated. The human body is so crazy. Like, whose idea was this? Whoever ideas was this is they're psychotic. They got a lot going on. But do you see it in your head well enough to take a picture and remember it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see it as a hearing aid.
Okay. Yeah.
I just picture an hearing aid and I make it look like an organ.
Okay. And the organ is cone shaped.
Yeah.
And that pointy end of the cone, that's where the neurons start. That's where we're starting to touch the brain. So these sound waves are being amplified. The melanin is helping to amplify them as they go into the liquid and they touch the hairs in your ears, and then they transform into neural impulses so that they can reach your brain, and your brain can do what it's going to do with that nerve impulse. The vestibule, like we said before, is divided into two parts: the utricle and the saccule. The utricle is the hair cells, and then you also have the ear liquid, which is the endolymph, and then the hair cells, which are the otoliths. The stuff on the hair cells is called the otoliths, and what they do is they push and pull on the hairs, and that's what gives you a gravitational feeling. Like if your head is to the side, the otoliths are pushing or pulling. I'm not really sure the correlation between my head and the actual hairs, but it's doing whatever it needs to do to the hairs inside your ear to tell your brain that, okay, your head is to the side, so now this vision needs to switch so that you can see from the side and all that fun stuff. The semicircle canals on page 68, the cristae are stimulated by sudden movements, which is the name of the hairs. They're stimulated by sudden movements or by a change in rate or direction of movement. In other words, whenever a movement begins and ends, accelerates or decelerates, or changes in direction, nerve impulses are set up in dendrites leading to your central nervous system. So there's constantly messages going to your central nervous system to tell you every time you move, when you move faster, when you move slower. And this is not just like the thoughts, like you see how I'm moving and I'm telling myself to move. I'm not just referring to this. Think about all the cells that make your body up, and every time they move and don't move, and all those other things, and the equilibrium that they affect. It's mad shit.
I feel like if you could talk to your brain, you would have a lot of complaints.
Right. I agree. And then you have the semicircle canals, and there's 3 in each ear. Yeah. And then we go on to page 71. And now we're correlating melanin with hearing, which I tried to do in the beginning while I was initially explaining it. But now we're going to just like reiterate it again, so you can hear it again. The amount of melanin in the inner ear is related to the pigment in the iris, and the significant differences in the temporary threshold shift have been found between brown and blue-eyed individuals. So all my homies that like to wear colored contacts, you ain't got to do that shit no more, my G.
Why?
Because your brown eyes are beautiful and they're necessary, and they show that, you know, your reflexes is on point, so don't fuck with me. But
I got red eyes. What does that mean?
I'm talking about your iris. As the sound waves travel toward the inner ear, melanin can also assist in the amplification process, which I said earlier. What it may do is enhance the conduction of the nerve impulses, which is something that we keep reiterating too, so that you guys can understand that melanin serves as a conductor. It amplifies all the electromagnetic things that are going on inside of your body. The inner ear melanin is located right at the conjunction site for the initiation of the nerve impulse for hearing. Like I said before, you got to think of it as like a cone, right? That cone, right when the hearing system ends and the neuron system begins, that little piece right there where you need to turn the sound wave that you just heard into a neural impulse so you can tell your brain what the fuck just happened. That part right there is where melanin is. And that part right there is going to help move it fast along. So as I'm talking, you're hearing me, and your ears is hearing the sound waves that's coming out of my mouth. And there's melanin inside your ears. So it's amplifying what I'm saying, and it's going to your brain. And your brain, if you want to, well, I like neuroscience. We can get into some books about the brain. But your brain is made up of memory maps and neurons and neurotransmitters. So the sounds that I'm making is going to your brain into neural impulses, and your brain is doing what it needs to do based upon your memory maps that you have in your head. Okay, cool. So melanin may be found in the endolymphatic sac, which is what we described earlier as the liquid inside your ears. The sac is what holds the liquid inside your ears.
What happens if that brown retina is lighter or darker?
That is a correlation to less melanin. So it might take you a little bit longer to understand somebody when they're talking to you. It might take you, your reflexes might take a little bit longer.
What if it was like all the way dark to the point where it almost looks like it's black?
Then you on point. Then you can do anything. With the melanin inside the endolymphic sac assists in the maintenance of ions in the fluid. Because, like we said before, melanin absorbs electrons. So it's absorbing. If I don't know exactly what you need to eat or drink or be around to protect that part of your ear, but melanin is helping to do it for you on an electro sense. In the vestibular organ, inner ear melanin may help synchronize hearing and rhythmic movement to the body. The majority of people of European ancestry lack the natural rhythm possessed by most people of African descent. If skin pigmentation has any correlation with the amount of inner ear melanin, then differences in natural rhythm may be explained accordingly. So yeah, when you can hear things at a quicker pace, you can stay on beat with a song because you're interpreting it as fast as you're hearing it. So and then because you also have melanin, while those sound waves are being turned into nerve impulses and your brain is doing what it do, say you want to dance. Your melanin is acting as a conductor, and not only is it conducting your sound waves into nerve impulses, it's also conducting their nerve impulses inside of your brain and your nervous system, telling you, hey, when you hear this song, you want to move like this, you want to snap your fingers, but you need to snap your fingers to a certain tune, and that's to the tune you're hearing. So then the melanin is acting like a semiconductor and it's conducting your memory maps. When I hear this song, I snap my fingers. That's my memory map. That's what my memory map says. And I gotta stay on beat because the melanin in my brain helps me move at a faster pace to where I can physically stay on beat. That's why I do make fun of white people when they dance. It's like the best thing ever. But that's why they can't stay on beat, because the melanin in their ears and the melanin in their brains and then the melanin that affects their physiological movements, all of that can't move fast enough to the music that's being played. It also explains the kind of music that we're attracted to. Whereas someone with more melanin would be more attracted to drums and bass and beat, because that gives us something to move in motion, in a rhythmic motion. Whereas someone who has less melanin would be more attracted to rock music, because that music is more airy and has less of a rhythmic beat that they have to stay on. Another thing from page 72, during rapid movements, reflex activity will adjust the position of the head with respect to gravity and the horizontal plane. As a result, the body is adjusted relative to the position of the head. The vestibular system has direct neural connections to the eyes, spinal cord, and cerebellum. Like I said before, you're seeing stuff, you're hearing stuff at the same time. These connections allow the individual to regulate changes in head position. Consideration of the general biophysical and biochemical properties of melanin has further led to the speculation that inner ear melanin may serve as a reservoir for trace elements. In other words, it may act as a sink for free radicals. As we said, that melanin absorbs the free electrons in the air. It may also provide cytoprotection against autotoxic drugs and high-intensity noise damage. So because melanin absorbs those electrons in the air, it also helps absorb that high noise. As far as some people, when they're around a lot of, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen because you have melanin, you're not going to go deaf, but is less likely, and melanin is there to serve as a protection against the loud noise because it does absorb all those things as a sink. But like Zeke had said earlier, you still have to protect while your melanin is protecting you, you still have to protect your melanin, because your melanin is a sponge. And I don't know about y'all, if y'all wash dishes, y'all keep washing dishes with that same dirty ass sponge, your dishes is gonna be dirty. That's nasty. You have, for those who don't,
After
some people,
it's broken in half or something, you need to.
I mean, okay, so throw it out is what you do in real life, but like for the sake of the hypothetical conversation that we're trying to have here, you have to wash your sponge. Okay, say you're using a wash rag. Wash your wash rag in the washing machine. For the sake of the hypothetical conversation that we're having.
Do not throw it
but
away.
What we do is we throw it away. Please don't throw your melanin away, guys. Keep that shit. It's necessary. For those of you who invest highly into bleach creams and stuff, please stop. Stop bleaching your hair. Stop bleaching your skin. Stop.
I only did mine once, and so
I do mine all the time, and it's more so because I love color, and I can't let color show on color doesn't show on my hair without bleaching it. But I have not bleached my hair in hella long, and I don't want to go back to bleaching my hair. And I tried the hair wax, and I was highly disappointed because every time I touched it, I had color all on my hands, color all on my clothes, color on my pillows, color on the back of my car seat, on the wall where I had my head, on my couch. It's just annoying, and the
first time you did my hair, all the green went all over one of these chairs.
Yeah. So it's everywhere. And that's the logic to me bleaching my hair. But it's not good for you. It does strip the melanin from your hair, and the melanin in your hair is just as important as the melanin in your skin.
Well, mine is still here.
Yeah, I mean, like, we got roots, you got your black growing in. It is what it is.
I only did, this was the first time I ever bleached my hair.
Mm-hmm.
And at first that actually looked like a goldish yellow, but now it's just an orange.
Yeah.
Like after
because the sun is, and because
no, like when it hits the sun, it literally looks like just like the shiniest orange you ever seen. Oh my gosh, you have a ball shiny hat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a shiny. It's that.
Okay, so on page 74, I have a few other quotes.
Oh hey.
Hola.
How you doing?
It has been experimentally shown that individuals with a brown iris have shorter temporary threshold shifts than individuals with a blue iris or who are albinos. This result supports McGinnis, who theorized about melanin's ability to be a threshold switcher. In addition, investigations on industrial-related noise-induced hearing loss and suggested that individuals with dark eyes suffer less than those with light-colored eyes. So having light-colored eyes is not the best thing in the world. It's okay to have your dark browns. I have dark brown eyes. I don't give a fuck. But I used to wear gray contacts, though. Trev hated them.
Wait, gray eye contacts?
I had gray contacts.
Why?
I don't know. It was cool looking.
I mean, yeah, like, oh my god, I got Tokyo Ghoul.
It wasn't because I hated my brown eyes.
It wasn't because of that. It was just because
cool.
You actually liked the contact. You liked how it looked.
Yeah, it looked cool. It wasn't because I hated what I had. It's because I liked. I like colors.
The majority of us just have contacts because, like, ooh, I like this color.
Yeah,
it's nice on my eyes.
But don't do it because you hate your color. Don't hate your color because your color is a representation of your survival abilities.
Who you are.
Yep. So
who you are, never change.
Right. So melanin may have a protective function whereby sound energy peaks are cut off through excitation of melanin and then later converted into thermal energy. So if you're listening to something super loud, your melanin kind of dims the sound for you to protect you. And then that extra energy that should have been the sound you were hearing turns into thermal energy. Are you familiar with thermal energy is?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's heat.
Yep. So the nature of Black music is very rhythmic. It is like a steady beat of the heart. The thump of the heart and the thump of the bass in the Black music are harmonically driven. The acoustic sound of bass may convert to thermal energy and cause highly melanated individuals to become saturated with feelings. This gives a great explanation to the religious rituals and the playing of the drums, going to church and listening to music, and everybody loves the drum player at the churches. This all creates an exciting feeling within oneself. and elevates your mood. Your breath stinks. The feelings can be transformed into rhythmic movements that are created by all types of Black music. Inner ear melanin may cause a highly excited state of energy transformation. In contrast, people who are deficient in melanin may prefer high-pitched erratic music like rock and roll, heavy metal, like I said before, in order to feel the vibrations that, the fact that Black people can dance rhythmically to thumping bass of Black music while others may exhibit uncoordinated movement when dancing to rock and roll or heavy metal. First of all, I could pop lock and drop it to some heavy metal. Somebody play System of a Down, a bitch is pop locking and dropping. I can find rhythm in anything. Don't test me. My head back. I can find rhythm in Slipknot. I be pop locking and dropping to Slipknot. In fact, I pop lock and drop it to anything.
Just one guy just singing with my hair back and forth while you just.
That is not a rock song. That is Willow Smith.
No.
Stop trying to play my girl.
No, while you just trying to rock it out and just swing your hair back and forth, somebody just singing in the background.
Yeah, but like the dance of winding and hip movement and stuff, that's my go-to dance. And I can do that to rock because I can find the drums and rock.
Why is that all band-aids on you?
Oh, because I had a little hangnail, that skin that be hanging, and it kept snagging on my clothes. And then I was washing my hair yesterday, and it kept snagging on my hair. He asked me why I had a band-aid on my finger.
What's a hang?
You never had like them pieces of skin that be like hanging on around your fingernail?
Oh,
that shit hurt. And it kept snagging. I was washing my hair yesterday, and I washed my hair with apple cider vinegar and lemon juice and all that fun stuff, and it was burning the shit out of my fingers. So,
well, you were using a lot on the jewelry. So.
Oh yeah, you clean copper with lemon juice. It cleans a.
You have lemon, and you put what? Yesterday you did a lot of things that could have broken your hand with burning. You gave Miles lemon water. You did all that stuff. You messed with like a lot of vinegar for your jewelry just to get the dust off of it.
She actually does oil. That was coconut oil.
Well, that's even worse.
No, coconut oil didn't burn it. It's the lemon juice. Juice. I do mess with lemons all day long though, because lemons are really good for you. They're a good cleanser. They're good for energy.
The oil would actually hurt it.
No, the oil I didn't even know I had it until I tried to wash my hair, and I squeezed the lemon into the water to soak my hair, and I was like,
What about vinegar?
Yeah, vinegar did it too, but I didn't, you pour vinegar from a bottle, so I didn't have to touch the vinegar. I squeezed the lemon, and that's when I realized it hurt it. But hold on, because we're almost done the book. We only have like 2 more chapters. Miles, can you sit down for a second so we can finish this? So yeah, to conclude, we cannot overemphasize the complexity of the vestibular hearing and equilibrium systems. The location where melanin is primarily found is in the inner ear. At this site, melanin can simultaneously influence both hearing and equilibrium. In effect, optimally functioning melanated inner ear can cause the person to be efficiently rhythmic and well coordinated. If we can surmise that all people of African descent are genetically programmed for all types of melanin to function at a greater capacity, then we can scientifically validate why people of African descent are more rhythmically coordinated when compared to other ethnic groups. And now we're into chapter 8, which is skin and its hormones. And now we're going to get to your question about chlorophyll. It's somewhere in here.
Yeah. I'm going to find out who said it.
It was Ross.
Ross?
Go down. Raga Sanders.
Raga Sanders. We're about to answer your question.
Okay, so what do you have on chapter 8?
Chapter 8 discusses the importance of skin and hormones. In chapter 5, they actually did talk about hormones a little bit. Chemical messengers. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to talk more about it. Get in more depth. Now for chapter 8, I did say we're going to do hormones. We're going to do the importance of skin. Skin is like armor, since its ability to protect the body from the internal environment.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be, without your skin, you're pretty much going to be a zombie burning in with the sky and all that ultraviolet stuff.
Right.
So that's a plus. But then also, one of the things that amazed me is that I learned today.
Okay.
I learned today and yesterday that skin is an organ.
Red numbers on it.
Okay, that's fine. You can do that.
I never knew that. I just thought skin was skin. I never knew it was an organ.
It's the largest organ in your body.
Because it's all of you. But since it is an organ, it also has the ability to produce, manufacture, and regulate hormones, which is a biological substance associated with the endocrinology, which we stated in chapter 5. So yeah.
Facts. So your skin is divided into two parts. You have your epidermis and your dermis. Your epidermis has your stratum corneum, your stratum lucidum, your stratum granulosum, your stratum.
What is that?
No. Your dermis is your superficial papillary, and this is your capillaries bring blood to your epidermis, and you also have your reticular, which is responsible for the toughness and your strength of your skin. On page 77, they talk about the structure of the skin. The epidermis has several cellular layers. The dermis constitutes as the greater part of the total skin thickness. The range of thickness is from 0.5 millimeters over the eyelids to 6 millimeters over the upper back, neck, and palm of the hands and soles of your feet. Since the dermis contains fat, numerous blood vessels, nerves, sensory receptors, hair follicles, and sweat and sebaceous glands, which are the glands that secrete oils, it is known as the true skin. Then it goes on to get into the functions of the skin. First, you have the sweat glands that provide a thin film over the entire skin surface. The sweat glands secrete water, lactic acid, amino acids, urea, uric acid, and ammonia. The sebaceous glands contribute fats, fatty acids, and wax alcohols. These secretions enable the film to act as an antiseptic and a neutralizer of acid and alkali. And it also interferes with the absorption of toxic materials such as the lubricant of the horny layer to control the hydration of this layer. Secondly, the keratin from the horny layer of your skin is almost complete physical barrier to the electromagnetic waves, bacteria, fungi, parasites, and practically all noxious chemicals. Keratin is a tough, fibrous protein, and it has a tightly packed arrangement of cells, and this which creates the lipid bilayer of your skin. Excuse me. Skin also provides as a thermal regulation. The sweat and sebaceous glands act as a large radiator surface to handle the continuing adjustment of heat loss and heat production in your body. Since blood is the primary medium of transfer of heat throughout the body, the complex vascular patterns found in the skin play a significant role in the regulation of heat loss. In addition, thermosensory receptors located in the skin, stimulated by heat or cold, are connected with the central regulating mechanisms in the brain. Skin also performs as an excretory function. What are you doing? Stop. Substances need some way of being released from the body, and the skin contains sweat and sebaceous glands, and that allows substances to be released from the body. They excrete different types of substances. Sweat glands can be divided into two types, the endocrine and the apocrine. Endocrine glands are the smaller sweat glands, and they're distributed all over the surface of the body, except for the lips, the glands, penis, and the clitoris. These glands are innervated by the central nervous system, and they respond strongly to sensory and psychic stimuli. So these glands pretty much respond to nervousness. When you're nervous and your palms get sweaty, or when you get sweaty because you're nervous, or when you get sweaty because you're scared,
Embarrassed.
Yeah, embarrassed. Any type of psychological stimuli you feel that makes you sweat. That's what this gland pertains to. The endocrine gland.
Well,
now your apocrine gland.
Why would it do this?
Why would it do it? Because it's not it. Why would it do this? Because when you feel those feelings, you feel like a temperature change, and there's also a chemical change in your body. That's why they say, it's a lot. Okay, so when you're we can go back to Metu Netter. Being emotional. and being connected to your emotions, it's important to not be connected to your emotions. But when you're emotional, you're connected to your emotions, you're at a high state. And this high state that you're in can become toxic to you. If you're at a high stressful state at all times, it becomes toxic because your brain is functioning at that stress state. Your body organs are functioning at that stress state. And eventually your body's going to get tired. Well, because your skin performs as an excretory function, it excretes those chemicals that need to be excreted from your body when you are at those stress states. Those toxic stress states, your body has to excrete those toxic things. That's why when you're nervous or you're afraid, that excretion, it has a smell to it. You could smell the fear on somebody. You could smell the stress on somebody because that kind of sweat, that kind of secretion has a smell.
And here I thought the same was just something funny.
What?
It was gross instead. I can smell your fear. It was actually gross.
You want to wear my glasses?
No, my head's too big. The epicrine system.
I thought that was just like a wise saying, but wow, that's actually.
Yeah, it's true.
I won't see my glasses on now.
No. The epicrine glands, or the large sweat glands, do not occur over the whole body, but they're found in the armpits, around the nipples, on your abdomen, and around your belly button,
and maybe even your neck. Sometimes.
Perennial regions, and then other regions. This functions periodically and responds promptly to mental stimuli. They do not respond to thermal stimulation, and their secretions do not take part in thermal regulation either. So, sebaceous glands are different from the sweat glands due to their different secretions. Sebaceous glands produce oily substances called sebum, which forms a greater part of the lipid component of the surface film covering the skin surface. Sebum anoints the hair and keeps it from drying and becoming brittle. It also forms a protective film on the surface of the skin, and that limits the absorption and evaporation of water from the surface. In humans, sebaceous glands protect the skin surface where hair follicles are present, and they are relatively small, almost areas of the trunk of extremities, but quite large on the skin, forehead, face, neck, and upper chest. The skin also performs as an absorption function. The waxy surface film on skin and the tightly packed cells of the horny layer provide efficient barriers against penetration of most substances through the skin. Skin is permeable to substances that are lipid and in a gaseous state. The lipid-soluble barrier of cells is constructed to ensure that sufficient amounts of water permeate the cells. And since membranes is made of a lipid bilayer, lipid-soluble substances are able to pass through the membrane. Phenols, hydroquinones, and salicylic acid, which is aspirin, are lipid-soluble compounds, and they go easily through your skin. Phenols will be compounds in which hydroxyl group is bonded directly to a specific carbon atom in an aromatic ring. Organized. A typical phenol is more acidic than in alcohol, but less carboxylic acid. For those of you guys who are into chemistry, you guys know what I'm talking about. When hydroxyl groups of phenols are oxidized, they form hydroquinones, and those a certain kind of those are dopaquinone, and those are very critical in forming melanin. So the oils in your body help to absorb the chemical that can be utilized to create melanin as well. Other lipid or fat soluble substances, which in other words, other items that can go through your skin are estrogen, testosterone,
Mom,
progesterone.
I can never have my salad.
Bro, you just woke up. Estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and deoxycorticosterone. It was a bomb-ass episode on House. I'm a really big fan of House. And these kids were acting crazy. They were like your age. It was a boy and a girl.
You are more than a fan.
I am
literally
more than a fan.
You You watch
Oh.
it a lot. I can even hear it through the door. I
House is a
literally
really
have
good
that
show.
stuck in my head just because of how much you watch it.
House is a really good show. And they had this one episode where the kids were acting crazy and they were trying to figure out why. Come to find out, the dad was using testosterone cream because he was dating a younger woman. And because testosterone cream is lipid soluble, when the kids would hug their dad or just hang out with their dad, period, the cream from his skin was getting on them and it was causing them to have hormone imbalances. The girl and boy had too much testosterone in their body and it was making them violent. It was making the girl go on her menstrual cycle, and then she went into menopause like immediately after, and then the boy was just very violent. So it was so crazy. So testosterone is crazy. Hopefully that's not what they're spraying in the air. Oh shit.
I think that's what they're doing.
That's probably what they're doing in the summertime. Lipid soluble vitamins that penetrate the skin are vitamin A, D, and K. Of heavy metals are mercuric bichloride, salts of lead, tin, copper, arsenic, bismuth, antimony, and mercury are also lipid soluble. This is why people keep Himalayan salts in their space. This is why people wear copper or have copper in their space or other metals. Anybody interested in the benefits of these different metals that I just named that are lipid soluble, you can find them on my Let's Nobody's Collection website. I do have an article called Metals in Your Orgonite, and it gives a great description of the different metals that are in orgonites that, as we see, are lipid soluble.
Lipid soluble?
Soluble. That means that it can be absorbed.
Oh.
For example, they can be transformed on or in the corn. Oh, okay. With exception of carbon monoxide, substances that are in gaseous form at ordinary temperatures easily penetrate the skin. The amount and rate of transfer depends on three factors: the vapor tension of the gas inside and outside the skin, the temperature, and the water and fat solubility of the gas. Gases transmitted easily through the skin are oxygen, nitrogen, helium, carbon dioxide, ammonia vapor, hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen cyanide, volatile aromatic oils. This is why people are into aromatherapy, because it is soluble through your skin. So all those benefits of plants inside aromatherapy and inside of a you remember when we had the humidifier? We put water in it and you put herbs in it and it gave a smell in the air. Your skin is absorbing that smell and it's taking on whatever those benefits are. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
It felt actually like you were bathing in the spring or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
eucalyptus is my favorite.
The actual thing was that actually during that period of time when you got it, it was actually the time I felt like I couldn't breathe right because my nose was all like messed up, stuffy all the time. It's actually like the first week we were here.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was when we kept on discussing about allergies and stuff.
Being around new plants and stuff and having to breathe in new shit and your body getting used to that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's why people are into aromatherapy, because your skin is absorbing those plants or herbs or fruits or vegetables that's being put out into the air. Yep. Physiologically, the movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide is most important. Just getting into orgone energy, which is the energy everywhere. When you have stagnant energy in your space, that's what makes you tired and lethargic and moody and et cetera, et cetera. That's the beauty of orgons and organites that I make on my website, because they move the energy, they move the air in your space, because it's absorbing it and expelling it at the same time. But anyway, those are my shameless plugs. Anyway, going back into the functions of skin pigmentation is a major one that everyone focuses on because we are physical beings. And it goes on to talk about how melanin is formed and it's contained in melosomes, and melosomes are synthesized, and melosomes are synthesized by melanocytes that are transferred into keratinocytes, in which they are then transported into the epidermal system, the epidermal surface, and that's where we see melanin. Ethnic differences have been demonstrated in the size, numbers, and arrangement of melanosomes within the multi-layered epidermis. Also, it is the multicellular epidermal melanin unit. Melanocytes are multidendritic cells located at the epidermal junction of the skin. Although the population densities of epidermal melanocytes vary from one bodily region to another, all humans, regardless of skin color, have approximately the same number of melanocytes. Ethnic variations in skin color, however, result from differences in the properties of the melanosomes and not from the differences in the number of melanocytes. So everybody has the same number of melanocytes, but if your melanosomes, which are what is synthesized into the melanocytes, that is different. The principal pigments of vertebrates are melanins. There are 5 basic colors in the mammalian skin and hair, and that's black, brown, red, yellow, and white, which is the absence of pigment. Different combinations and intensities of these colors are found in a variety of hues and patterns that can be passed from generation to generation. That's why we have all these racial names for each other. You have white, you have yellow, you're red, bone, you're black, you're brown. Other researchers state that the major sources of color are melanins, black, brown, carotenes, which are yellow of the epidermis, and the oxyhemoglobin, which is red, and the deoxyhemoglobin, which is blue, which is, in other words, blood without oxygen. The black-brown melanin of the epidermis and the hair is designed as eumelanin, and the yellow-red melanin as pheomelanin. Solar radiation and UVR from artificial light sources stimulate the production of melanin. Melanin is incorporated into a subcellular structure referred to as pre-melanosome. When the organelle is fully melanized, it is known as a melanin granule or melanosome, as we said before. The epidermal unit mentioned earlier contains the melanosomes that pass through the multidendric processes of the cells, which they are released into the surrounding cells of the epidermis. The epidermis, that's your skin. The biosynthesis of melanin is highly dependent on the tyrosine and the related enzymes. And like we said before, tyrosine is the essential amino acid utilized by melanocytes.
That's the skin.
Now you're whipping my
That's skin.
You're whipping
the book also goes on to talk about how tyrosine turns the melanin as far as the scientific goals, and that's the what is it called? The Mason-Raper pathway that I showed you guys earlier. And then it goes in to talk about that there is a plant that ancient Africans chewed, and it's a root called amimajos. If that still exists, someone let me know. But when they went on caravans across the desert sands, this root provided extra protection from the sun by reinforcing skin pigmentation. I'm not going to go into more detail about that, but the chapter goes on to describe how if more people ate the root, white people would turn black, and it would help white people live, and blah, blah, blah. I don't think all white people should live.
Whoa, that's a bit dark.
That's my dark side. So I'm not even going to read that and put that out onto Facebook. If you care about the root and you want to read about it, it's called amimajos, amimajos.
That's a shrug noise that I can tell that something bad is going to happen.
What?
It's like, let's not get into that.
Yeah, let's not get into that, because it's starting to give certain kinds of people keys, and it's probably what they're doing. But there was this whole thing. There's these documentaries called Hidden Colors, and they talk about how when Black people put that they're organ donor on their license, that they're targets, and white people, not white people necessarily, but corporations have been killing Black people and harvesting their organs, because when they find Black people's bodies, their organs are missing. And as we see in this book, melanin is concentrated in a lot of our organs on a necessary level. So when certain white people don't have that kind of melanin, if they got money, they qualify for these Black people to die and take their organs. And so, no, I'm not about to read about a root that people can overly plant, because that's what the fuck they do. they kill everything, and then they're going to overly plan it so they can live forever and keep doing bullshit to black people. No, I'm good.
They kill?
And that's just my personal opinion. You know, you don't have to agree with me, but like,
And sorry if she.
And then the also skin color transformation. It goes on to talk about vitamin D and how vitamin D assists with skin color transformation. And then in the book, vitamin D is considered sultryl. Black parents give rise to brown. Stop. Black parents give rise to brown, white, red, and yellow pigmented humans all over the world. Early human fossils were found around the equator region in Africa, and any organism born near the equator has a dark exterior, and then the further out you go from the equator, the lighter one's skin becomes, because when you have less sunlight, you don't really need as much external skin melanin. The disadvantages in regions of the earth that have limited sunshine can be
What? Yeah, it's been going on for a long while. The towers suck, or Wi-Fi suck, because, like, for this whole
Miles, I need you to chill, okay?
the whole entire morning, the Wi-Fi and the Xbox Live been turning off and on.
Oh yeah, that sucks because.
But my tablet be fine when that's
on
my tablet be fine. Like if I like during the time, my tablet would be fine.
White living room TV controller.
No, go in there and find it yourself.
Usually when that happens is that